and welcome to the Faith. Good afternoon and welcome to the Faith Alliance sharing today on financial issues and financial workshops. I'm Cedric Hughes Jones Jr., the senior pastor of the Mount Zion Baptist Church of Philadelphia, joined by colleagues from around the country, including from the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church and Reverend Kevin Murphy. Won't you take it away, Reverend Murphy?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. As Pastor Cedric Jones has already mentioned, my name is Reverend Kevin Murphy. I serve as Associate Pastor of Illumination at the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church. And I just want to welcome you to today's workshop on credit and also say Happy Father's Day to everyone in attendance. God bless you all. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our fearless leader, Brother Herman Palmer.
Thank you, Reverend Murphy. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Herman Palmer. I'm the Vice President of Housing Programs for the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Just to give you who we are, NFCC, we basically were founded in 1951, and we are the first and largest nonprofit dedicated to improving people's financial well-being. We're here to help. We're excited that you've joined us today. This whole faith-based alliance was brought about to give people the resources, the information, the connections they need to facilitate better financial outcomes for them. And so we hope that you take the opportunity to join us in this deep dive on credit. We ask that you have the opportunity, share your questions either in the chat box or after. There are no silly questions. Far too often, there are questions that exist that people don't ask. And if you have a question, very often there's somebody else that has the same question. So please feel free to ask. We do ask that you mute yourselves during the presentation again, and that you share via the chat box. And now I'm going to pass it over to the wonderful colleague from Freddie Mac, Miss Latanya Gonzalez. Latanya.
Thank you so much, Herman. Thank you on behalf of Freddie Mac, a secondary mortgage company that does more than purchase loans from the primary market of lenders. We also provide financial literacy information, and tonight I have the pleasure to introduce you to Cora Fulmore. Cora is recognized as an industry expert in consumer credit issues, student loan debt, foreclosure avoidance, homeownership counseling, and education. She has served as a spokesperson, mortgage and credit counselor, and an advocate for policies that promote creative and safe lending practices. From 1997 to 2014, she opened and operated the Mortgage and Credit Center, providing direct housing counseling services to consumers in Florida. She has mentored me personally and trained many practitioners from the nonprofit and for-profit worlds. As a master trainer, her training history includes Freddie Mac Credit Smart Curriculum, NeighborWorks America, and many more. In 2014, she developed the first online housing resource for housing professionals called the Counselor's Corner, now known as Diversified Resource Network. Today, that membership organization has over 5,000 members. So at this time, I would like to have Cora take over. Enjoy tonight.
Thank you, Latanya. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all of our ministers and our fearless leader, Herman. We really appreciate your leadership in guiding this particular effort, and the fact that we've gotten two of the most prestigious congregations in the Philadelphia area that has seen fit to bring this not only to their membership, but also to the community. So thank you all, and I appreciate the work that you've done on this initiative. I am pretty excited about today's presentation. Herman and Latanya has already talked about some of our housekeeping things, so I won't go over that. But what I do want to talk about is what we will cover tonight. There's a lot of information that I'd like to share as it relates to credit. Credit is near and dear to me. So we're going to talk a little bit about the impact that credit has on all of our lives. It affects many things that we do, some of the current trends that's going on right now in the credit industry. How are we protected? Knowing the laws that protect each and every single one of us, and how to understand your credit report. As a matter of fact, have your cell phones handy, because I'm going to give you an opportunity to hover over a QR code, and I want you to go ahead and pull your credit report tonight. If not tonight, maybe tomorrow, but we want to give you the information and show you how you can get it and gain access. We'll also talk about the shelf life of bad debt, because everything has a shelf life. It's not there until you die. There's no such thing as bad credit until death. And we want to talk about that and give you the real information and help you understand what is that shelf life. How long can a creditor come after you if there's something that's outstanding? And then we're going to show you some examples of a dispute letter and also give you a link to the CFPB dispute letters and how do you deal with inaccurate information. I'm going to say right now, we've got a little over, right at about 20 people on the call, and we're expecting a much larger crowd. I can't tell how many are on their cell phones and they've called in, but those that actually logged in, of the number of people that are on the call right now, I know for sure, without even looking at your credit report, there's at least 25 to 30% of the people on the call right now with something on their credit report that shouldn't be there. It's an error. And so you have to know then how to dispute those things that are incorrectly being reported. And we'll talk about that and talk about some of the things you can do. And then finally, we'll talk about understanding the FICO scoring model. We want you to take a good look at this particular scoring model, because this is the model that most lenders are using in order to determine our credit worthiness for any type of lending product. Now, I will tell you there's different versions of the FICO scoring model. We won't get into a lot of that information, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate. We're all here to try and address any questions that you may have. So let's go ahead and get started. You know, credit impacts every single aspect of your life, every single, whether or not it's employment. A lot of employers will pull your credit in order to determine whether or not you are the person for the job. And that poor credit can have a negative impact on being selected for employment. Credit also impacts your ability to be able to purchase a home. The better your credit score, the better your interest rate will be. And knowledge is power. And so what I hope you'll leave from here today is to understand your credit worth. And that's so important to understand, what is your credit worth? I always tell people I negotiate on everything. I know where I stand credit-wise. I pull my credit report often. And because I do that, I negotiate on everything. I just recently bought a sectional. I wanted the sectional so bad. My sister was coming to town and I really wanted to spruce up my den. And so I wanted a sectional. This sectional, I went over to, I believe it was Bears Furniture. And the sectional was pretty costly, but they said, I told them, look, I'm going to buy one today or I'll buy it tomorrow. I'll buy it either from you, I'm going to buy it from another person. I know my worth. I don't need your credit. I don't need any deals. I have my own financing. So I need you to give me the best deal that you can on this particular sectional. Either you do that or I move and go somewhere else. Now, even when they gave me the best deal they said they could give me, I even pushed them even further. So know your credit worth. Know that you can negotiate. Know that you have that ability. It also impacts your ability to get insurance, be it auto insurance, life insurance, health insurance. Often your credit score is pulled and they price the policy based on that score. And do you know that credit can also have an impact on your utilities? You can't get water connection or electricity in your name unless they pull your credit. You can't even get cable in some cities without them pulling your credit. So that just shows you how important credit is to your overall well-being and the things that impact you in life. Now, here's something that I wanted to share with you. This is a chart that came from the New York Fed. And what it's looking at is how much debt we have all gotten into. And student loans, we know student loans is the real booger out there. And student loans has really had an impact on our industry. Student loans at this point is almost at $1.6 trillion of student loan debt. Now, this is in the first quarter of 2022. We also have credit card debt. We still have a lot of individuals, a lot of us are using credit as our source of taking care of our financial needs. So we rely on credit. So credit card debt, even though it's less than $1 trillion, it's almost there. And then the other thing that seems to haunt us a lot in currently is the auto lending. Auto lending is currently at $1.4 trillion, and that's a lot. If we don't understand the game, we can be gotten. And the whole thing is to not be taken advantage of. Understand the game and the hand that's being played in order for you to effectively be able to represent yourself. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Know what's going on in the industry and then use that to your advantage. Here's a chart. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
The way I think about credit is simply this. It is an industry's scorecard of your ability and your follow through in meeting and paying your debts.
Absolutely.
And if you don't do a good job, it is then their excuse to charge you more because their perception is that you are a bigger risk. So if you know that at the beginning, make sure you create the best profile for yourself and pay your debts on time.
Herman, I really appreciate you saying that because you're absolutely right. Understanding the system, understanding the game that's being played puts you in a better position. And so hopefully when you walk away from tonight's presentation, you will understand the game a little bit better. Okay, here's a chart that I pulled, which shows the trend on personal savings. Now, I'm going to tell you back in 2020, the savings rate had bumped up to 34%. Right now, we're down at 4.4%. This is the lowest I've seen the savings rate in all the years that I've been providing training on credit. And I pulled this particular chart from this particular website each time I do a class on credit, and I always look at the current figures. People are not saving money as much as they used to. Now, I did a class yesterday and showed this same chart, and the class said, the reason, Cora, that people are not saving is because of the economy. Well, that's probably right. Some said inflation is the problem. And because of inflation, people can't save. And you're probably right on that. And I would tend to agree, but we cannot afford not to. Now, no one ever says, a practitioner, a counselor would never say that you have to save a certain amount of money. What we say in the industry, you can't afford not to save. It doesn't matter how much you save because life challenges will happen. And if you don't have anything to fall back on, it puts you and your family in a very precarious position. So it's really important that you look at your overall standing and what you're doing as it relates to putting money back and see how much is reasonable and realistic for you to try and set back and save. And it doesn't matter whether it's $10 a week or $10 a month. Everybody should be saving something. Okay, and we just want to show you this chart and show you that the savings rate is down. And we would hope that that would start to increase, but we know that there are dilemmas out there when you look at the cost of food, the cost of gas, all of the things that impact our pocketbook. It makes it difficult for us to be able to save some money. So just try to save something. Here's a copy of the same information from a different department within the federal government. And it really looks at the savings rate to show you how that rate has gone up and down. Up and down. Well, this is the delinquency rate. I apologize. This is the delinquency rate. And where the delinquency rate actually went up in 2010, this was during 2009, this was during the Great Recession, and then it started to go down. And now the delinquency rate is at 1.73%. Now that's something that's very impressive. The delinquency rate has been lower than that, but we are impressed with this particular figure, showing a 1.73%. But here's the deal, folks. In all of that stuff that I've shown you, we all have credit reports, every single one of us on the call today. Our credit, I don't know what the credit reports look like from everybody that's on the call, but we all have credit reports. But what I do know, the bureaus, the furnishers of information sometimes report and have inaccurate information under our names. I've got inaccurate information under my name. I've got an incorrect address under my name, an address that I've never lived at. And along with that address comes bad information, okay? So don't believe that the folks who collect the data on each of us, that they are working very hard to make sure that that information is correct. As a matter of fact, consumers complain all the time about the bureaus and the information that's being reported on each of us. So if you've not had an opportunity to take a look at your credit report lately, I would encourage you to do so. I personally pull my credit report twice a year, and I have to look at it. Not that I worry about how I'm paying my bills or anything like that. I worry about not fraud occurring, and I also worry about inaccurate information being reported on my credit file. Here's a link that I'm giving you, and if you have your cell phones, please take a picture of this or do a screenshot. This is some information that I think every consumer should have. This comes from the CFPB. Remember, in the previous slide, I mentioned that there are a lot of errors that's being reported by the bureaus. The bureaus are not so forthright in handling errors that are on our credit report. So as a result, CFPB has said, we will work with consumers in dealing with complaints about their credit report, dealing with complaints about credit repair companies that scam individuals, dealing with any type of consumer type dispute that you all may have. And when CFPB gets involved, they listen. Look at the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I know that we may have some other states involved, like New Jersey on the call, but just look at Pennsylvania. For the state of Pennsylvania, there was a total of 119,000 complaints. This is an updated report. I just pulled this information on yesterday for the state of Pennsylvania. And look at this. What are people disputing or going to CFPB complaining about? They're complaining about credit reports, credit repair company services. These are the companies who say, I can clean your credit report up for only $1,000, $3,000, $4,000. I tell you what, don't worry about the $1,000. Just pay me a monthly fee and I can get it all clean for you. Oh, guess what? Here's what I'll do. I'm going to suggest that you get a new Social Security card. You don't want to do that, okay? You don't want to do that. I'm going to
Cora?
suggest, yes,
I'm noticing that Texas and Florida, those
yes.
numbers are, I mean, outrageous.
Yeah, I live in Florida and there's a lot of issues with information within the credit bureaus in the state of Florida. The main credit bureau, and I'm not against any one particular bureau, to be honest with you, but the main bureau in my state is Equifax. And a lot of the information being reported is straight up wrong. It's incorrect, it's inaccurate. So people have complained, not just about the credit stuff. They complain about other things that CFPB can look into, like mortgages. They complain about car payments, car companies, car dealerships, all of those things. CFPB can be your friend and definitely a place that you want to check out. So the links are right here. This is the one that I would go to if you would like to take a look at what's being reported over at CFPB and the type of complaints they handle. And you can file a complaint through this particular link here. This is where you file the complaint. So how are we protected? There are a lot of laws that you need to be aware of and know these consumer laws. And it starts with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The Fair Credit Reporting Act gives us the right, me and you, the right to take a look at our credit report. It gives us the right to order a copy of our credit report and receive that credit report for free. And I'm going to give you the website that you can go to. It also gives you the right to dispute any inaccuracy that's on your credit file. And then it also gives you the right to dispute anything that's been on your credit file longer than it should. There are a lot of creditors that keep changing the date of collection, the date of default. They're changing the date, which extends the time that information stays on your credit report. But I'm going to give you that shelf light in just a few slides from now. You also have the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That particular regulation, it covers how debt collectors can talk to us. Okay, what they can say and what they can't say. It also tells you how often they can call you. They can't harass you. They can't say nasty words to you. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and please don't hold this against me. I used to be a debt collector in a previous life. And I'll be honest with you, I was probably the nicest debt collector you could have ever had. But I repossessed cars. That's what I did. I repossessed cars. I sued individuals. I took them to court. I even garnished individuals' wages. And I'm a nice person. I never talked harsh to anybody. My goal was to get you to pay. But you know what? Not all debt collectors are like that. There are some horrible debt collectors out there in the industry, and they say all sorts of things to consumers. I always told my clients to introduce a debt collector to CLIC. And what CLIC means is to hang up on them. Okay, so the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act really helps you to understand what those debt collectors can and cannot do. You got the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. This particular regulation is important even today because it looks at and prohibits credit grantors from the ability of discriminating against you because of certain things, because of your religion, because of your sex, because of your age, because of all of those things. They can't do it. And I remember that this has happened and it continues to happen, but people don't know that their rights are protected. Fair Credit Billing Act. The Fair Credit Billing Act is all about those credit cards that you may have and those statements that you get on a monthly basis. If there's any inaccuracy with the statement, if there's anything that has been charged to you that should not have been charged, if you are a victim of identity theft, and you need to dispute this entry that's on your credit report, there is a law that protects you, and that's the Fair Credit Billing Act. It tells the credit grantor when they get a complaint from me that they have to handle that complaint within a certain time frame, and they have to remove that obligation from my balance until it's been investigated. And then once it's been resolved, either it's removed from my bill completely, or it's resolved in their favor, which then it has to go back onto the account and I have to start making payments. The Truth in Lending Act, this is all about disclosures, okay? Being disclosed the information about the true cost of credit. How much would it cost you to deal with this particular creditor? Some of you have gotten some unsolicited offers in the mail for credit card from credit card companies, and the offers will have a truth in lending disclosure that discloses to you, if you decide to take advantage of this, this is what it will cost you, okay? And that's the Truth in Lending Act. So remember all of these protections, because they not only protect me, they protect every single one of you as well, okay? And I've told LaTanya and Herman and all of the ministers on the call today, if you all have questions, you can ask a question at any point. I am not ruffled or derailed by any questions that may come out from you all. So feel free to ask questions, go to the chat box or raise your hand and we'll just stop and you can ask your question live. It's up to you, okay? So LaTanya, if you see any questions out there, please feel free to stop me.
Okay, I will.
All right, so we've talked about the Fair Credit Reporting Act and how this particular act works and all of that. Now, the important thing is knowing how long does negative information remain on your credit file. The general rule is 7 years, unless it's a bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a 10-year time frame. Now, I've seen in the industry, I've seen where if you filed a Chapter 13 and it's at the 7-year mark, I've seen where the bureaus will entertain removing that entry from your credit file. That's a Chapter 13. But if it's a Chapter 7, it's going to remain on the credit file for a period of 10 years. We talked about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and how that particular act works. Make sure you understand you are protected from harassment, false statements, debt collectors saying anything that they want to say. If they may say something like, pack your bags, go home now, because the sheriff will be at your doorstep by 5:30. And let me just tell you, there's no such thing as a debtor's prison. I know a lot of collectors will say things like that. Oh, you're not a US citizen? Pack your bags, because we're going to have immigration here and you'll be deported. I can assure you of that. So there are things that they can't say. Know your rights, know where you stand and what they can and cannot say to you and how they can and cannot handle you any kind of way. And so we talked about the Equal Credit Opportunity, the Fair Credit Billing Act, and how that particular regulation works. Now, let's talk about the credit report. Understanding the credit report, because this is a thing that we stumble about sometimes, not really understanding what this report is all about. We're fearful. I can remember a time in my life, and I'm going to be transparent with you. I can remember a time where my husband and I have gone to a lender and I have sat in that seat and I've prayed silently. And I've said, Lord, I sure hope they don't pull TransUnion, because I used to live in Tyler, Texas, and TransUnion was the major bureau there. I didn't mind if they pulled Equifax or Experian, because I knew Equifax and Experian would not have a good file on me. And I wanted to show the file that had the least resistance. And so, know and understand this credit report and how this process works. So I'm going to give you a quick bit of information, but I want to point out something right now. Here's a QR code, And it's to annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com is the government-sponsored reporting agency that gives all of us a free copy of our credit report once a year normally. But since we've been going through COVID, you can pull your credit report from annualcreditreport.com weekly. I wouldn't suggest you do that unless you are a victim of fraud or identity theft. Then I would suggest you pull it more frequently than once a month. But this particular report gives you a lot of information that has been reported on you. So if you have your cell phones handy, please go ahead and hover over the QR code. It'll take you directly to annualcreditreport.com and you'll be able to pull your credit report. Or you can take a copy of this particular slide and then go to Annual Credit Report directly on the website later on. So here, every single credit file has this section. And here's the section. It's identification section. It has your name, your social security number. Some will give a partial social security number, not all of the digits, okay? It'll be the last 3 numbers of your social in most cases. There was a law that was changed a few years back which requires that the Bureau not show the entire social security number because of fraud. It shows your telephone number on some of them, how long you've had a presence in the credit file, your date of birth, and also any other names that you may have, any other names. It gives your current address. It provides a previous address. Sometimes it provides 2 or 3 previous addresses. It gives your place of employment, how long you've been working at that particular employment. All of that is in the identification section. So here's the deal. When you pull your credit report, make sure you evaluate the identification section, because if there's bad information there, and they're saying that the bureaus collect bad information, it could have your name incorrectly being reported. So please make sure you evaluate that identification section and make sure that the information being reported there is true and accurate. Here's a portion of a credit report, of my credit report that I pulled, and this is the error that was showing on my credit report. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I hid a couple of things in order to protect the innocents. But what I wanted to show you is that this particular report shows an address that I have no knowledge of. It shows an address in Miami Gardens, Florida. I don't even know where Miami Gardens is located, but yet it shows that I've lived at this particular address. Whenever there is bad information, there could be a trade line that follows that bad information. So you really want to make sure if you see any inaccuracy on your credit report, you want to dispute that inaccuracy. So I went as far as to say, I've never been to Miami Gardens, so let me pull up this address and see what it looks like. That's not my house. I've never lived there, okay? But my name is associated with that particular address. And so it was really important for me to then go through the credit report and find out what is the other information that is connected with that address that could have a positive or a negative impact on my credit score. Okay, and you would need to do the same thing. I don't know this address, never lived there, don't know the community, and those are not my cars, okay? So those are some of the things you have to look for. Here's another part of the credit report. And this gives you, well, you won't see this in most cases, your creditors will. Anybody that you apply for credit with, when they pull their own internal credit report that they use, it may give them special alerts. And the special alerts are alerting them to the fact there's something about this credit report that's not right. The Social Security number is a little bit different. There's an off digit. This person is going by different names. You know, it alerts the credit grantor that there's information out there that needs to be addressed. So we just wanted to let you see that. You won't see this when you pull your credit report, but your credit grantors see the alerts. Here's the section on the credit scores. And we'll talk a little bit more about the credit scores a little later. This area of the credit report shows the reason codes and also the score. The score is this information here. Equifax is showing that this individual has a 679 credit score. And these items are the reason codes. And the reason codes are the top 4 reasons why this individual score is no higher than what it is. And what they're saying, this individual has a 679 credit score. And the reason that score is 679 is because of this. It says the length of time the accounts have been established. That's a problem. This person has taken on some new debt. The debt isn't seasoned. And because the debt isn't seasoned, they're getting dinged for that. And that causes their score to go down. They're also saying the proportion of balance to credit limit is too high. And what that means is I've got $1,000 credit limit and I've charged $950 on it. And so my balance owed to the limit is too high. If my balance was at 300 or if my balance was at 200, this would not be an item or an obstacle. Now, I may have paid that debt as agreed, but because I'm charging too much on that credit card, I'm too close to the limit, it has a negative impact. Too fewer accounts with a recent payment history. Now, this means that I've got several accounts, but I'm not paying them as agreed. And they're looking at the fact that I've not paid, and that has a negative impact on my score. And the last item in this category for this particular score is current outstanding balance to open account. You have too much debt to the open accounts that you have, okay? Now, these things are very important to you. We're gonna talk a little bit later about how does the Bureau look at all of these items in trying to determine what your credit score is. And as you can see, there's 3 credit scores that's being reported, and that's a norm. And the lender will not get the lowest score, and they're not going to take the highest score. They're going to take the score in the middle, okay? If there are questions, please feel free to ask. So here's a summary section. And the summary section just puts everything together, and it says, here's everything that you owe. Out of all of the things you owe, this is a condensed way of looking at it. You've got 2 public records, Cora. You've got a collection account. You've got a negative trade account, and there are 4 trade lines. And then it goes on to say, but you've got 2 revolving. Of the 2 revolving, your current balance is $5,300. You're not past due. However, this 1 installment account you've got a payment. Your balance or your high credit was $16,900. Your balance is $12,900, and your payment is past due. You owe right now past due $1,128, and your payments are only $282. Now, will impact anybody in a serious way, and a current delinquency will cause your credit score to go down significantly. And you know, we talk real vague when we talk about how low your credit score can go, because the information is proprietary information. And I work with FICO all the time, but they will not divulge their secrets, you know. But we can tell you, once we look at an overall report, kind of tell you where that score will probably lie, but we can't give you the exact figure, When you pull your report from annualcreditreport.com, it will not give you the credit score. However, you can pull your report from a vendor, your bank, if they participate in open access. You'll know because they'll offer a free copy of your FICO score, your credit report with the FICO score. That's a good way of getting the credit report as well. You may even have a relationship with a credit card company. I work with American Express. That's the company that I choose to use. And they will allow me to pull my credit report from American Express system, and it has no impact on my credit score. When I pull my own credit report, it has no impact at all on my credit report. And the same thing for you. It will not have an impact at all. This is trade line information. Now, this is who I owe, how much money I owe, what was what's the balance right now, if I'm current, if I'm delinquent or had some delinquency. And in this area, it shows the account rating. And here it's saying that for this particular account, you are an I-5. Now, the I means it's an installment loan. The R here means it's a revolving account, but it shows the level of delinquency. If it's a 1, that means that you're not delinquent at all. When it gets to a 2, you're 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, and you stayed there for a while, and then you made one payment and you were still delinquent. So, you know, look at the report and make sure that that report is right. If it's reporting that you're delinquent, but you're not. I had an account, my husband and I paid off a property, a house that we had many years ago, and it showed paid off, but it also showed that I was delinquent on an account that was paid in full. It showed that I was 3 months delinquent on an account that was paid in full. So that's impossible. And that was an error. And that's just how things work. I've been in this industry, folks, for over 30 years. And for 30 years, I've worked in this space somewhere, a little bit or another, okay? If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. Errors happen. If you've not gotten it yet, I'm just stressing the point that the creditors make mistakes. We cannot depend and rely on their accuracy. Often there are errors in the credit file that you'll never know about unless you pull a copy of your report. The other area of the credit report is the inquiry section. And the inquiry section looks at all of the inquiries that are being made on us. These are inquiries that we generate, and these are also inquiries that we don't generate. So there are inquiries that come to your credit report and they've not actually seen your credit. These are inquiries for solicitations. Some of you, many of us, get pre-approved credit card offers. You will get a pre-approved credit card offer when a creditor has bought your name from the bureau. And the creditor has said to the bureau, give me the names of the individuals that fall within these guidelines. I don't have to look at their credit report. I just need you to vet these people out. They can be at least 30 days delinquent on an item, or they can't be. They can't have a car payment, or they can't have more than 2 credit cards. There are all sorts of parameters that they look at in order to determine. That inquiry will show up on your credit report, on your copy of your credit report. It will not show up on the lender's credit report, but those type of inquiries have no impact at all on your score. The inquiries that have an impact are the inquiries that we generate. And you know, we generate inquiries all the time. I don't know about you. Sam's Club is right down the street from where we live, okay? And I like Sam's. I love going over to Sam's because they have some really neat stuff every once in a while. And I remember going one time to Sam's, and I had a certain amount of money in my pocket and I had a buggy full of stuff. And the lady at the register said, if you get a Sam's card today, we'll give you X number of dollars. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's been some time and I don't remember if it was $20 or $100, but whatever amount that was, it sounded good to me because I was short just that amount. And I said, wow, sure. But that one inquiry with that Sam's Club card, not that I intended to use that card, I just wanted the money that they were going to give me. We do this all the time. We do it at Easter for a 15% discount. We go to Macy's. They say, do you have a Macy's card? If so, we'll give you 25% off. We do it all the time. If you take on a new obligation, that inquiry can have an impact on your score and cause your score to go down. It's not going to cause it to go down by a lot, but it will cause it to go down. Yes, sir.
So before you leave, so what you just described in terms of those vendors that are looking at your credit without your permission, trying to get a profile, that's called a soft pull. A lot
Yes.
of times you'll hear people say, is this a hard pull or is this a soft pull? A soft pull is when they're looking at your account without you being involved. They want to sell you something oftentimes.
Yes.
A
Yes.
hard pull is when you specifically are applying for a new loan or a credit card, you're giving your permission and they're getting involved. That's a hard pull. So
Yeah.
now, that I wanted to make sure you understood the difference between hard and soft pull. But the other piece is, if you've ever been in the market to buy a house and you're applying for a mortgage loan, sometimes somebody might say, okay, now you're applying for the mortgage. Don't go out applying for any new credit or anything like that. Don't go buying the new car to go in the new driveway, the new garage. Don't go buying the new furniture yet, because we got to make sure you get approved for this mortgage loan. So that's really important.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Herman, because the soft pulls, we need to understand the difference, as Herman just said, has no impact at all. You pulling your own credit report has no impact. But when you do what I did, that's a hard pull. And because I gave them permission to pull that information. And because I did, that inquiry had a negative impact on my score, and it caused my score to go down. It did. And that impact was around for a little bit of time. It wasn't just a 30-day impact. It was more than a year. So know that these things, some of the things we do in credit can have an impact and can cause our score to go down. Another area of the credit report is the public record section. In the public record section, here's where you have judgments, tax liens, bankruptcy is what you will see. Any type of legal action. You'll also see collection items near that area as well. Anybody that you may have a collection debt, medical collections. And there's been some changes with the law as it relates to medical collections. And I think we're going to talk about that too a little on later today. You need to know that the laws are changing, and they're changing in our favor about things, because the bureaus have been so bad in the way that they report information on every single one of us on the call. We have to be protected, and that protection is coming from CFPB. I won't give them all the credit, because there are a lot of nonprofit organizations out there that's also pushing this particular effort, because they're working with consumers on a daily basis and seeing how consumers are being taken advantage of. And so we know your rights. That's all I can say. Know your rights, because these are the things that can protect you. I promised you that I would give you the information on the shelf life as to how long information stays on your credit report. But let me just tell you this. The laws changed back in 1997 is when the laws were passed. It actually took effect in 1998. Now, so that was a long, long time ago, okay? People are still operating based on the old law. Know your rights, because information cannot remain on your credit report indefinitely. And what creditors are doing, particularly some of the little shyster creditors, they're re-aging that account back, changing the date of last activity, the date of reporting, and making sure that that item remain on the credit file a little bit longer than what the law allows. Know that the law says that positive credit is usually around 7 years, okay? Late payments, 7 years. Collection accounts, 7 years from the date of, and this is important, the date of collection or the date of charge off. And we have to know then what is the date of charge off or the date of collection. And as a previous collector, I would always tell clients or ask them, when did you stop making payments? You know, you count from there. So, because if you, once you stop making payments within at least a 6-month period of time, it's going to go to the collection department, or it may be charged off, and it's 7 years from the date of collection or the date of charge off. Chapter 13, 7 years. Chapter 7, 10 years. Foreclosure, 7 years. Public record information, 7 years. Even arrest records will appear in the credit report. Not often, particularly when they're doing a background check, you'll see that type of information. Unpaid tax liens can remain on the credit report or credit file indefinitely. So what do you do then if there's information on your credit report that shouldn't be there? Well, I suggest you dispute it. And this is a sample letter that I've used in my business in working with families that find themselves in a situation where there's inaccurate information on their credit report. First of all, you need to dispute whenever there's anything inaccurate. I normally recommend to my clients at that time that they dispute with all of the bureaus and that they're very specific with their dispute. And my dispute starts out with this. I received a copy of my credit report to find that the following information was reported in error. And then they explain what those disputes are and the information that is being reported inaccurately. Here are the items that are being reported inaccurately. MBC collection service. It's just a $71 balance, but the balance on this account, and let me just go back to that one. The balance on that account is incorrect. The account has been paid in full. So if a debt has been paid in full, you want that debt to report a zero balance, because the fact that it's a collection account, that's a negative. If it's a collection account and it's been paid, you want that collection account to report a zero balance. City cars associated, the balance on this account is incorrect. The car associated with this debt was sold and the balance reported does not reflect the sale of the vehicle. Now, this is a car that was repossessed. Whenever there's a repossession, the creditor is required, well, most times, I'll put it like this, most times the creditor is going to sell the vehicle. And whatever they sell the vehicle for, they're required to give you that credit. So if they sold the vehicle for $1,000, your balance is going to be $1,000 less. If they sold the vehicle for $10,000, your balance will be $10,000 less. The problem is when often consumers don't follow up and they are so engulfed in the fact that the car was repossessed. The next point would be to find out, did they sell the car? And if they did, then you want to know how much they sell the car for, because you want them to give you credit for that, okay? And then the same thing with the other collection account. I want to show you this, this particular link. This is a sample letter that I created. These are sample letters that come directly from CFPB. And so you can click on this link and go to some of the sample letters that have been provided by CFPB. We went as far as with our dispute for the clients that we work with under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, we request that these items be investigated, and that's what you need to tell them, and delete this information from my credit record. I assume that 30 days constitute reasonable time for verification of these items and response time. It should be understood that failure to verify these items within 30 days constitute the fact that you have to promptly drop this information from my credit file. And then we also ask the bureaus, please send me, meaning the client, a copy, an updated copy of the credit report once they've done their investigation. And also tell them, don't send me a summary report. I want the full report. And we have to talk the language that the bureaus understand. And then if you have a problem, your ace in the hole is to go to CFPB. So,
Cora,
yeah.
is there, how do you approach in the scenario that you shared where they repossess a car?
Mhm.
You know, that can be, as you said, people are going to be caught up in their emotions. They're going to be in their feelings. And so, you know, that's kind of a dicey situation. You got somebody that's got a little size to them. They're feeling some kind of way. They can say, look, you need to give me credit for that. Is there some kind of language, or how do you specifically go back to that dealer, we'll say, and say, all right, you
I
sold
would
the
not-
car.
Yeah, I wouldn't go to the dealer. I wouldn't go to the dealer at all. I would let the bureau go to the dealer.
Okay, there you
And
go.
if the bureau if the dealer doesn't respond to the bureau, then by law, the bureau has to drop the information off the credit report. Now, here's the caveat. The bureau could report the dealer could report later on. And if they report later on, that information goes back on your credit report because they've updated and they provided the information. So you've got to be really specific as to what you want the creditor, the bureau to do, what you're in the dispute. You want to be really clear that this car was repossessed, the car was sold, and the balance reported does not reflect the correct balance. They have not given me credit for the amount the car was sold for. You see this a lot with buy here, pay here places where they repossess the car, they resell the car to another consumer, but the person that they repossessed the car from, they never even told them, never said a word about it. And you have to push the envelope.
Yep.
Good question. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for asking. Let's take a look at the FICO scoring system and how this system works. Now, let me just tell you up front, FICO is the company, Fair Isaac company, that they don't collect data on us, but they read the data, and out of the reading of the data, a score is developed. They got their own proprietary platform that they look at the things within our credit report, the information that's being shared on us, and they determine by that information what your score is, okay? I can give you the 5 factors that they've disclosed to us, but there are other factors that they take into consideration that we have no idea of. It's all proprietary, okay? So there's no way to really beat the system, but there are some simple things that you can do in order to get a better credit score presence. There are basic things, as you know better, you do better. And these things can allow you to move your credit score up. It's nothing that's illegal because we don't promote that. There are a lot of companies out there, credit clinics will tell you all sort of things. They'll tell you, just dispute everything on your credit report. We don't make that as a recommendation because there may not be a reason for you to dispute those things. And we've got to be honest with ourselves. There are things that shouldn't be there, and they shouldn't, like that address that was showing on my credit report, like the fact that they showed me delinquent on an account that had a 0 balance. I mean, come on, think about it. And so you have to evaluate your position, and then from there, you decide, here's how I'm going to go with this. But knowing this little bit of information about FICO can take you a long way. Now, there are several FICO scoring models that are out there, from FICO 02, 04, 07, 08, 09, and 10, 10T. Those are different models of FICO. And all of those models look at our information differently. I always say that if I'm going to pull my credit report, I want to look at the FICO 08 or FICO 09, because I have a much higher credit score with those versions or those models of FICO. But we can't pick what scoring model that the lender uses. We can't pick. We can't say, hey, go and pull FICO 08 or FICO 9. They've already made a determination what scoring model they're going to use, and that's the scoring model that they pick. So we can't control that part of it. But you need to know that there are various models that are out there that lenders will use. And there's things with the credit scoring is really like a grading system that adds or subtract points from us based on some of the things that we do in the way that we handle our credit. It's been around since 1950s, and it is a proven system, but there's always some fallacy or problems within everything. But it's all incumbent upon us to get the correct information. And I will tell you this, don't trust the internet. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of bad information out there around credit, around savings, investing, that you should not listen to. There are a lot of companies that just give bad information. I was doing some research about a topic a few months ago, and I came across this wonderful video. I wanted to use a short 1 minute or 2 minute video that I thought would help teach a point versus somebody listening to me talking. And I pulled the video, I listened to that video like 3 or 4 times. And there was something in that video that didn't sound right. And I reached out to my contacts over at FICO and I said, hey, do me a favor. Can you listen to this video and tell me if the information in this video is accurate? Because it didn't sound right to me. I couldn't put my hand on it, but it was one little point and it was said real quick. If you looked away or just became preoccupied, you would not have gotten it. But I did, and I sent it over, and she said, this is inaccurate. You can't use this. It's not right. So be careful of what you trust out there in the computer land. Make sure that you vet that information with a trusted advisor, because everything that's on the web is not accurate. All the information that's shared is not accurate. Now,
and also beware of phishing.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be inquiries asking you, presenting you with what you think might be a wonderful opportunity. And the old adage is true. If it sounds too good to be true, if it looks too good to be true, and you didn't initiate the contact, chances are it's too good to be true. They're just trying to get your information or plant a virus where they can just continue to capture information with your regular dealings. So be incredibly careful with what you do on the internet.
Absolutely. I get offers in the emails all the time about pull your credit score. I delete it. I don't pull from any site except for 2, and that's annualcreditreport.com and myfico.com. I normally pay for my credit score. I don't get the free version because I've been around for such a long time. And my credit report at annualcreditreport.com is 46 to 50 pages. And it's not because I got a lot of creditors, it's the way they report information. And because of that, I refuse to pull it through annualcreditreport.com, but I use annual credit report as a teaching tool because the information is accurate. And if you've got a client who doesn't normally pull their credit report, annual credit report is the best place to go because it allows you to take Herman loves to use this term, a deep dive into your credit report. It gives you that opportunity because it looks at one creditor in multiple ways, and it provides a year's worth of history on how you've paid that particular creditor and if there were some issues and that type of thing. And that gives you the opportunity to say, I'm looking at this and I see that it's reporting that I had issues, but that's incorrect. That needs to be corrected, okay? So this is true. I like this chart. I love this because it is a true assessment of where we all stand. It's not carved in stone because I've met some 18 and 23-year-olds that had pristine credit. But for the most part, when you look at the age group, the entire age group of 18 to 23, they're not going to have the highest credit score. And the reason they're not going to have the highest credit score is because they're just starting. The person that is 18 to 23 probably has some student loans, okay? And so you're not gonna see, they may have brand new debt that they've taken on. So that particular person, in most cases, is gonna have a much lower credit score. Like the 24 and 39-year-old, you've got those individuals are looking at home ownership most cases. And so their debt load is gonna be a little higher. And then 40 to 55, this is an individual that has been around for a little bit, but they have had life experiences. Not everybody in that particular category will have a 699, but the general rule of thumb based on stats from FICO and from others, the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, this is what they're saying. The average FICO score for individuals within this age group is this. And as you can see, the older we get, the better the credit presence look like. So when you reach, I'm so happy to say I'm in the 56 to 74 age group, not telling my age, but in that category, those individuals have already experienced, they're at the point of paying off stuff, paying off debt. They're not, in most cases, taking on a lot of debt. And then those individuals, 75 years old or less or more, these are folks who have paid off their house. They probably not, they don't have a car payment. And so things look a little bit better. So the less debt you have, then it may show a much higher credit score.
So now one point I want to make with less debt is be careful with somebody might say, oh, less debt, I'll start canceling some of my credit cards. Be careful with that because the way they look at the algorithms and whatnot, they look at length of credit. So you don't want to get rid of your older credit cards because that could actually cause your FICO score to go down. So be careful with that. And absolutely. I do have a question for you, Cora.
Yes, sir.
What is a good credit score? I mean, you show us the range right here. Yeah. But what on average would you say is a decent credit score?
Well, you know, in my experience, anything over a 700 is good. Anything over a 700, and then under a 700, you can start, the lender will start pricing you based on that score. And so the lower your score is, the higher the cost will be to the consumer. And they're charging you because of your score. And so that's why I am an avid advocate of everybody knowing what their FICO score is. I mean, you can pull your score from anywhere, from Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, and those are educational scores. And that's good if you want to learn about this whole scoring system, but it's not the model that is being used by the lender. And that's why I recommend, if at all possible, that you can pull your credit report from MyFICO or pull it through one of the FICO open access accounts that your creditors have that's free, where you actually get your FICO score. That's the best way to go, because you'll know and be able to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Cora,
So-
we have a question from Tamika
Sure.
Mack. Tamika, can I ask you to come off of mute? I see your hand.
Hi,
is
how you
raised.
doing?
We're doing fine tonight. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, regarding to the accounts, okay, say for instance, you know how you get where I guess because the creditors want you to use their cards. And I know you was talking about be careful with closing the accounts.
Yeah,
So when they close the account, it's better for them to close the account.
you don't want to
Because-
close it at all, Tamika.
But it's like if I'm not using it at all and the
I
account.
got you, girl. I got you all the way, and I understand. And I've closed out 4 or 5 credit cards. I had no intention to do anything at the moment. If you have an intention to buy a car later on, you don't want to close out any credit cards, because that's going to cause, it's going to take away from your availability, and it's going to cause your score to go down. Now, you can freeze those credit cards, you can cut up those credit cards, you can do anything else but close it out. And if you're going to close it out, allow the lender to tell you, don't make that decision before you go to a lender. If you're looking to buy a house or looking to do something else, let the lender says, you've got too much debt, Tamika. I would not keep, I would go ahead and close it out. Let them pull your credit report first before you close out anything, because when you close something out, hopefully I can give you a good visual. And I so appreciate you asking this question. So here's my hand. I've got 5 credit cards, and each of these credit cards have a limit of $10,000, okay? So what I have available to me is $50,000, right? So say that I have charged $8,000 on this one, $9,000 on that one, $2,000 on this one, and I just don't use these cards at all. So I make a decision, I'm going to close these accounts out. But remember, I have available to me $50,000. So 10,000, and y'all are going to help me because I've already forgotten what I said this was. 10,000, what was this one, Tamika? 8,000, I think, and 2,000. So how much do I owe on these 3 cards total? Tamika?
So you got 8 and 2, that's 10. And the other one you said was, forgot. So it's just roughly 15,000 out of
Okay,
50,000.
let's say it's 15,000. But what's available to me is 50,000, right?
Right.
Okay, so now I am at, and Latanya, please do this for me. 15,000 is what percent of 50?
All right, hold on.
Tamika, you may be able to do that in your head. I can't.
Mhm.
15,000 is what percentage of 50?
30%.
30%. Okay, I'm at 30% of availability. And remember, they look at availability. Remember those reason codes? So now I'm closing out these 2. I no longer have 50,000. I only have 30,000. So 15% is of what percent of 30? 50%.
It should be like 50. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm at 50% of availability. Being at 50%, I've used too much of my availability, and that's going to cause my score to go down. And so you don't want to close these accounts out. You want to keep all of the accounts open. You just don't want to use the accounts. You want to cut up the cards, shred them up, do whatever you want to, put them in the freezer in a glass of water, let it freeze up, so that it'll take a little pressure, a hard time for you to get through it to take that card out of the freezer, but don't close them out. Just hold on to them. I don't make any recommendations that anybody close out their credit cards at all. I truly
what
appreciate you asking that question.
But what if the lender closed it out? Does that affect your credit score at all? Because I haven't closed it, but the lender closed it.
Yeah.
Because seriously, after so many years, I'm not using it.
Yeah.
Affect your score at all, or does it impact?
No, I hear you. I've got an account right now at the bank that I use that they sent me a letter saying because of inactivity that they were going to close that account out. And I asked them why. I didn't want them to do that. And so it's still open and it is available to me. There was no reason for them to close it other than the fact it was inactivity. But I will tell you this, and then Herman, I'll turn it over to you. During the Great Recession, a lot of creditors reduced the credit limits to a lot of consumers, and that affected consumers' credit scores in a big way. A lot of lenders closed accounts out because of that recession we had, and they did not want to have so much exposure when they looked at consumer debt and they pulled credit reports and saw that consumers were using those credit cards in order to get ahead. So I don't make that as a recommendation. I'm gonna turn it over to Herman because he's with Consumer Credit Counseling Services, NFCC, and they work with consumers like that all the time.
So what I would suggest is, one, even if you do not, and you do not use the credit cards, please make sure you check those monthly statements just to make sure nothing new that you didn't charge is popping up. So that's one. Two, part of the power of this program is giving you a peek behind the curtain to let you know how the game is played so that you can develop your game plan to make sure that you leverage every opportunity to a better outcome for you. So part of that is, if we know that lenders want to close an account due to inactivity, once a year, go buy a Snickers bar. On that, pay it off. They can't come at you for inactivity. You're not carrying a balance. You still get credit and the benefit of all that credit. One Snickers bar a year, and you're good to go.
Yeah. I like what you just said, Herman, peek behind the curtains, because that's what this is all about, giving y'all that information. I wish I had this information when I was younger. I really wish I had it. I thought I knew it, but I didn't. My degree is in business administration. I thought, well, I took a class on business law with this much of information about consumer debt. And I thought I knew everything. And to be honest with you, at the age of, I think I was 19, I convinced my husband that we needed to go to an attorney to file bankruptcy. We only owed $3,000 worth of debt. And I thank God for the fact that the attorney did not allow us to file bankruptcy. And he was somebody that looked at us young people and said, you really don't know what you're about to get into. You think you know, you're not that smart. And he told us to get up out of his office. And he said it just like that. If you don't get up out of my chair right now, I'm going to call your mama. And I thank God for that man, because had he not done that, we would have filed bankruptcy, because I'm a good talker. I convinced my husband that he needed to file bankruptcy. We only owed $3,000 worth of debt, and he believed everything I said. And I am so thankful I didn't, because $3,000, I tell people all the time, it's not worth it. Don't file bankruptcy over that. Wait, that's no debt. You could pay off $3,000. They may be calling you, then understand the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. Introduce them to your cousin Click. Hang up on them. You know, you don't have to accept all of these phone calls if you're being harassed. And so Herman said it, and he said it real good. We're trying to give you a peek behind the curtain. And I'm not that cool, but I like that term because it is so profound. I wish I had known that. And it took me several years to get this information. And I just made a promise that I would share this information with those that I encounter on a daily basis. So
And-
Tamika, thank you.
I have one more question.
Sure, Tamika.
Okay, so I have a teenager, right? So I have her listed on my account as an authorized user. Of course, she don't use it. So I'm trying to set her up so when she graduates, she at least have some credit started. Do you recommend for me to keep her on there like that to help build her credit up?
Well,
Because I want to set her in a better position than I was, because my intention is for her to when she graduates from high school to get an investment property.
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty that's real nice. You want to let me give me an authorized account too? Only
Sure.
joking, Tamika. You know, I'm always cautious. A lot of parents come to me and they ask that question, and that's fine as long as you have control over that account. As long as you watch that account balance. I will tell you that I gave a colleague of mine access to my American Express card. And she was an authorized user, and we were in the same line of work, you know, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. So as long as you watch that account and make sure that you understand that those charges are yours. You've given somebody permission to charge. If they don't pay, then you're still responsible for that debt. And, you know, I can't tell you whether or not to give it to your daughter or help
I
you.
don't have the card. I just have her listed. She don't.
Okay.
Oh no. Trust me, she did not get the card. I'm just trying to help her so she's in a better position.
That's a good strategy. That's a great strategy to do that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So, Tamika, I love that idea. I love the spirit. Here's what I would suggest. If you do decide to move forward and put your daughter on the card, you can always minimize the risk by saying, I don't want the card to have any more than a $250 or $500 balance. So limit the amount of credit they can have. So that way, if you have to take a hit, you know, it's not going to be $2,000 or $3,000 worth of hit.
Right.
So that's one way you can manage it. But you raise an excellent point. Again, this is our effort to give you a peek behind the curtain, but also we want you to share this information with your children. And I want you to take a moment to think about what our children see. They see us going out, going to an ATM, using our cards, getting money out. They see us going to stores, restaurants, and what have you, and using credit cards, boom. They don't see the money going in. All they do is see the money coming out. And I had a friend one day who was out with their child, and they were out, and the child said, well, why don't we do X? And they said, well, no, we don't have the money. Just go to the ATM. That right there crystallized the whole interaction for her in terms of what her child sees. So for that reason, we have to give them a peek at the whole picture, not just when the money comes out, but when the money goes in and the implications. So definitely, please take these insights and lessons to heart and absolutely make sure you share them with your child at a level they can understand, and start that process around junior high or middle school so that they can be informed and understand that even their actions have implications to the financial well-being of the family.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Tamika. I appreciate you asking and participating. I do. And if you have any other questions, feel free to raise your hand, and Latanya's there to try and see if we can help you, okay? So thank you very much. So all of the bureaus are using FICO right now. They also have their own proprietary scoring system that's not FICO, and their scoring system is a little bit different than FICO's scoring system. The most popular one that's out there is the one that Credit Karma and some of the other sites use, and that's the Vantage scoring model. If you look at the one on the bottom, that's the scoring range for the Vantage scoring model from 501 to 900. So it's a much higher score, but that's not the scoring model that the lenders are using. Then you've got the empirical score that TransUnion uses, and that scoring model has a range of 150 to 934, and that TransUnion is using. And then Experian is using the Experian FICO scoring model. And that scoring range is from 330 to 830. And Equifax is using the Beacon score with a scoring range of 3 to 850. So depending upon where the score comes from is going to dictate what that scoring range is going to be. These are the factors. Remember, I told you they won't tell us specifically all of the criteria and the things that impact the score, but they've given us some things, 5 things that can impact your score, and it tells you how these things affect your score. The percentage of credit limit available. So remember, the one person had the proportion to balance or proportion to limit is too high. That's a person who has used a big portion of their credit limit. It represents 30% of your score. And so you want to keep that as low as you possibly can. We used to say, keep it at about 30%, but that's not what FICO is saying. FICO says it's not about being at 30%. It's about being as low as you possibly can be. Your payment history represents 35% of your score, and that's how you paid on time. And so if you're not paying on time, if you have a recent delinquency with a debt, that's going to cause your score to go down. And you see it represents 35% of your score, and that could be a big drop in your score. The length of credit history, how long have you had a credit presence? That represents about 15% of your score. The accumulation of debt, that's the number of credit inquiries, and they're also looking at the open date. That represents 10% of your score. And then the credit mix also represents 10% of your score. And I want to talk a little bit about the credit mix, because that's about your mixture of credit card debts, installment loans, all of that together. Because I used to think that as long as you had credit cards that you paid as agreed, that would give you the highest score that you could possibly achieve. But not true. You've got to have a mixture of credit card debt and bank debt or installment loan debt from a bank. Now, the thing that hurts you and what we have seen that has affected our community is, in our community, they have buy here, pay here places, they have finance companies and all of that. And those type of services tend to have a negative impact on our score. You don't get the number of points that you would traditionally get if you would deal with a bank or a reputable credit card company. And then there are credit cards out there, and I'm not going to start naming any credit cards, but they usually are advertised late at night because that's when the people that are worried about their debt, they're up in a lot of cases watching TV, and they cater to providing services to those of us who have had a problem in the way that we've handled our credit report. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, because to tell you, you know, most of us have had some challenges at some point in our lives. You know, if truth be told, the thing is, just because you've been there, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. And I always encourage my clients in letting them know that poor credit is not unto death. There are things that we can do in order to improve our overall credit presence. And that's stuff that we just need to know. And so, but you have this information, this little wheel. We use this a lot in helping people understand how this whole FICO scoring model works. Here is a QR code for Freddie Mac Credit Smart Essentials. And this is an online course about credit, about financing, about investment, and it's free. And so hover over the QR code or take a screenshot of this particular slide. And I would encourage you to take a look at this and this particular information, this class, it's all online and it's very helpful to you. So does poor credit hurt you? Yes, it does. You pay more in the long run. And that's why it's so important to know your value. So when I went to buy that sofa, I know my credit score, and I know that I don't need those folks at the furniture company. Bears is a good company. I like them. I like the sofa that I was going to buy, but it took too long. It wasn't in inventory. They told me I couldn't get it until maybe August or even September. And I'm like, I don't want to wait that long. I want it now. So knowing your value can impact you. It's the difference between you having a mortgage at 30-year fixed rate loan for 5.5%, and we know that's high compared to where we were, and having a mortgage at a 9% or even a 10 or an 11%. Those percentage points, even though it's like 4 percentage points more, that's a lot of money. And so you really need to understand what the value of your credit score. And don't be ashamed to flaunt it. You know, just tell them, look, I know where I stand, and you can't tell me that this is the best you can give me, because I know where I stand. I'm going to buy a sofa today from you, or I'll buy it tomorrow from another guy. You know, and that's what it's all about. It's about empowering yourself, making sure that you have a clear understanding of where you stand. The same thing with a car. You know, the going interest rate right now on a car is 3 to 4%, almost 5% right now, if you have good credit. But if you have poor credit, that car loan interest rate is about 11. I've seen as high as 22% on a car loan. And I'm saying, why let somebody rob you of your money for a car? Why not understand credit and position yourself to get a better rating so that you don't have to pay quite as much? We've all been there, and it takes time to work on your credit, but it is something that can happen. There are some mistakes that can happen on the credit report that have an ill impact on your credit score. If I max out my credit cards, now this is the thing that hurts me the most. Look at the two columns. One is a person who has a 680 credit score, and the other one is a person who has a 780 credit score. If I max out my credit cards tonight, the person with a 680 credit score is only going to lose 10 to 30 points. But if I max my credit score out and I've got a 780, I'm going to lose from 25 to 45 points, because they're saying, you've had a good credit score in the past, Cora. Something is going on with you for you to max it out. So we're going to lower your credit score even more. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. But this comes from FICO, and this is information that we all need to know, and it helps us to understand, how do I then position myself? How do I position myself? How do I look at my credit in order to have the best credit rating that I can possibly have? So we can address credit problems, understand what capacity, overextending credit card debt, what it can, the impact that it has on us. Know that you want to keep your balance as low as you possibly can. This is a copy of my current credit score from FICO. I pulled this particular report last week on April 9th. It's all three bureaus. The bureaus that are reporting is Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. When I look at my score is good. I mean, it could be better. I'm not at the highest level because you can see that there is a little area right here saying that I'm not at 100%. But that's okay. You know, knowing where you are is the thing. You gotta take a look at your report. I pulled this report from myfico.com. This report cost me almost $60, $59.85. I pulled this particular version because I want to know where I stand with my FICO score. Could I have pulled my credit report from American Express? I could have. I would have gotten one report, but I wanted all three, and I wanted to be able to make this a teaching point for all of us. It's not about the score, it's about it's not as good as it could be. And you can find out where you stand as well by hovering over this QR code. And as I said, it will cost you, but you can also go to any company that you currently do business with, your bank, your credit card company that is a member of Open Access, and they provide you with one free copy of your credit report. Or you can go to annualcreditreport.com and you can pull one credit report from all three bureaus in order to see where you stand and what you may need to work on. What I like about my FICO is this, that it tells me, Cora, where your problems are. It says with the Experian right here, the Experian credit report, it's telling me, Cora, the amount of new credit is the problem, okay? You've got this has a 10% impact because you've taken on some new debt. And I did. It was me. And that impacted my score with Experian. But remember, I pulled this same report, not only with Experian, I pulled my report with Equifax, I pulled it with TransUnion, and also Experian. It's telling me, as far as the Equifax report, it says your amount of new credit rating is very good, Cora. Here it says the amount of new credit rating is just good, Cora. So one of the creditors that I've taken on recently is not reporting to Equifax. And that's common. Not all creditors will report to each bureau. They don't. So you see here, it shows that there was an inquiry on my credit report within the last year. It was really about 4 to 5 months ago. In this particular report, pulled on the same day, it doesn't show the inquiry, okay? But that's how the credit reports are. And that's how sometimes one credit report will report one thing and another credit report will report something different.
And for that reason, they have what's called a tri-merge credit report pull, where a tri-merge credit report combines basically the credit information collected from the three national credit bureaus, that's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, into a single report. And oftentimes you'll see lenders use this when they're about to make a mortgage loan. So
Mhm,
I just want to make
mhm.
sure everybody's familiar with the tri-merge option as well.
Absolutely. And they're pulling from all three bureaus when they do that. And but all of the information isn't always reported. Now, here's the score that I pulled on, okay, June 9th. So I pulled the score, let me go back. I pulled the score here in April, and I pulled it again on June 9th, and the scores are different. The scores have gone up slightly. And the reason that they've gone up is because of time. Okay, nothing that I've done, it's just time goes by. So, you know,
Well,
it
you
looks at
did
things
pay
like
on
that.
time, so it is something you've done.
Well, I try to. I've reduced my debt, um, because I'm trying to pay things off and that type of thing, and that has an impact. And so all of those things, you know, impact your credit. And the thing that has the biggest challenge that I have is the amount of new credit. The amount of new credit. So you have resources, and the resources that we wanted to share with you is NFCC. NFCC is an excellent company. I'm going to ask Herman in a few minutes to kind of give you some information about what NFCC can do for you and offer to you. They provide great information to consumers in the area of debt management, student loan counseling, small business ownership, financial coaching, credit bureau review, homeownership counseling, reverse equity mortgage, foreclosure prevention, and also bankruptcy counseling. And so know your trusted advisors. There are a bunch. Know that there's also HUD-approved housing counseling agencies out there that can help you. There's borrower help centers that are out there as well that can help you. Know that these people exist, and they're there to try and work with you in order to improve your overall credit standing. That's what it's all about. You want to address any credit problems that you may have. No CFPB. CFPB is looking at medical debt. They know that the medical debt, most of the medical debt that's being reported on us is in error. There's mistakes out there. They report the medical debt before they process the insurance claims. So make sure that you take a look at the medical debt and make sure it's not being reported on your credit bureau. There's some new laws that are about to happen in July about medical debt, when they can report this information. It used to be that it would be within 6 months after the debt was acquired, and now they're saying it's going to be a year before they can report it. So know that these different laws are there in order to help us. A lot of the information that's out there as it relates to medical debt is inaccurate, and it shouldn't be there. So there's so much that's going on, a lot of opportunities for consumers to get assistance as a result of COVID, with rent payments, even utility payments. There's a new reporting that's coming out through FICO 10. It's been around for about a year, but they're making some changes even within that, and all of our other great resources that we have. I'm going to turn it over to Herman to talk a little bit about NFCC, and then see if there's any questions or comments out there from the audience.
Yep. Thank you, Cora. I appreciate it. Again, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, we've got close to 300 member offices serving all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. We've got over 1,100 certified counselors, over 50 member agencies. So we're well penetrated across the country, and we are here to provide insights around financial challenges. We serve multicultural consumers, breadwinner moms, small business owners, military families and veterans, student loan borrowers. Use us. I mean, we're here, we exist to make sure we give you the right insight, connect you to the right resources to have better outcomes. So you've got our resources there. Call that number and we will direct you based upon where you live to an agency near you. We're one resource, but the good news is you have another resource. I'm going to ask LaTanya to talk about some of the educational resources that Freddie Mac makes available. LaTanya.
Thank you, Herman. I was just going to put it in the chat as you were saying that.
One thing.
Definitely. I just slipped it in there, but I want to remind everybody that Herman just put in the chat the survey. At some point, please click on the survey because we would like to get your impression of the session and find out what else do you want to hear. We need to get feedback for you so that we know where to place this type of messaging in other churches, in other cities. So go ahead and do that. But I just put in the chat the link for Credit Smart. Credit Smart allows you to get information for military, for renters who are looking for money management, for future homeowners. And if you want information on credit, that is definitely where I would suggest that you go. And I see that one of the pastors just came on camera. Was that you, Pastor Jones?
Yes. But let's continue. I was just on camera just to participate.
You always have a question for us or some type of insight. So I'm surprised that we did not hear from you tonight.
Well, I'll say this. I think the information that has been presented has been fantastic. We've had a lot of information, and I think what's important is to take what will work for you. There's been so much that has been presented that is outstanding information. One of the things I would suggest that we do is take 1, 2, or 3 action items and do them for yourself, certainly including pulling up the resources on your credit that have been mentioned. And I guess for me, one of the things that I take away from this is that I like the language that wherever we are in our credit journey, it's not a final destination. There are opportunities for us to make some changes and to actually improve our situation. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm also encouraged by the comprehensive nature of everything that we have heard today. And I do believe that there was a comment that may have just been posted, which we may have some persons to try to react to if I read that correctly.
Yep, you are absolutely right, Cora. There is a comment and it says, let me just pull it up here for you. If a hospital makes an arrangement by lessening part of a medical debt, does that show up on your credit report as a write-off?
No, in most cases it won't. There are a lot of programs out there. The Hill-Burton Act, there's all sorts of medical assistance programs where they can discount the debt that has no impact on the consumer at all. It's
Thank
a positive because it reduces the amount of debt that's shown.
Thank you, Cora. And also, Herman has placed the presentation. It is there for you to download in the chat box. And I have to say, Cora, I have my daughter on a credit card as an authorized user. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of everyone's suggestions. I'm going to actually give her this credit card with a lowered balance because I did not. So thank you, Herman. And for, Cora, you and I have talked about this. So I definitely wanted to help her and I was always cautious. So I did not give it to her, but I want her to get into the habit of actually understanding how to use a credit card before she goes off to college. So thank you to the young lady that brought that question up. That was right on time for me.
And I'm going to ask before folks sign off, please give us your church affiliation, what church you're connected to in the chat box, and let us know where you're from. Are you in Philadelphia? Are you in Florida? Let us know so that we can evaluate who we're reaching and what churches are actively promoting the series. Thank you. And happy Father's Day, Juneteenth, all that good stuff.
Cora, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, I once heard you say sometimes that we shouldn't pay off, and I might be getting this wrong, I like to work with reward points for my credit cards, right? I'm trying to build up all these points, so I'll charge everything and then I'll pay it off immediately.
Yeah.
How can I work this system so that I'm getting credit for it?
Yeah, I mean, there has, your account has to show that there's been some activity in the last 30 days, okay? You've got to show some activity, and charging it, letting it bill, letting the debt bill, and you get a statement with that amount owed and paying it off, that's okay. In doing that, you don't get as many points or the best benefit if you pay it off before it rotates and you see it on a statement. So you want to be able to see that on a statement in order to be able to get the best bang for your credit score, to get that score up, if that's what you're trying to achieve.
Yes, thank you.
And a lot of people have different thought processes in that. I do it all the time. I charge things, and I ride the creditor for 30 days because interest isn't charged for at least 30 days. And I try not to ever pay interest on anything. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I know there are things that I have to pay interest on, but I choose the things that I want to pay interest on. And I choose the things where the interest rate is lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Herman, thank you, Cora. Herman, they were asking about the presentation. If you
Yep,
were
I
able
just
to-
downloaded it again or uploaded it again. And
Okay,
if for some reason people can't get it, just email me. I'll give you my email.
Mhm.
And I will email it to you. Or yeah, just post your email and I'll send it
oh,
to you.
wow. Oh, wow, we have Phoenix, Arizona. Thank
Yeah,
you,
in the
Mount
house.
Zion
In
Baptist
the
Wow,
house.
that's great.
of Philadelphia. I know we have Florida on the line too.
Oh,
I saw
wonderful.
Charlene. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Miss Rose, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, and there are a couple of email addresses. Herman Palmer's email address is there if you'd like to send that so that you can get a copy of this presentation. We are recording it, and once that's done, we could probably send that out also. And we
Yes,
will
indeed.
post this to YouTube.
And let me say, Latanya, I really appreciate this opportunity to share with everyone. This whole subject about credit and money management is near and dear to me. I've not always had the score that I showed. I haven't. When I was in college, my score was really jacked up because I didn't understand. But once I learned the system and I learned how the system is being played on every single one of us, I chose to operate within that system. Because remember, I'm the girl from Florida that almost filed bankruptcy on a $3,000 debt and convinced my husband that that's what we needed to do. And thank God we had the right attorney, and this guy just kicked us out of his office. But that's where a lot of people are. So for those of you who are on the call, please share this information with your church members, with your folks in the community. Help them to understand how this whole system works, because what's happening is that they're relying on information that may not be accurate. And we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to help as many families as we possibly can. And so thank you to all of you, and thank you to the team for inviting me to be able to do this presentation. I want to turn it back over to y'all, and I'll go silent.
I just thank you, Cora. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Always insightful, always uplifting, always actionable. So thank you for just being you and the wonderful insights you provide. So I really appreciate you. I'm just going to close with this. I want people to think about credit as it influences interest rates and that you are charged by. And these interest rates directly affect the amounts we pay. You were to say that differently, interest rates impact and determine your amount of interest expense. Interest expense impacts your overall expense. And expenses impact your ability to save and build wealth. And we know that wealth impacts our quality of life, It impacts the quality of our children's life. It impacts the timing and our ability to retire. It even impacts our political influence. So, we say credit and we just throw that term around. We're really talking about the quality of our life, the expenses we pay. So really appreciate the power credit has. And those little dollars, those little percentage points equate to dollars. And I need you to think about those dollars as your personal employees. Every time you spend, you're sending your employees to go work for somebody else. So think about that. And I think, I'm starting to be, I'm trying to be a better employer of dollars. And I hope you will too. And I'm going to pass it on to somebody else on the team who might want to close.
I just wanted to make just a couple of comments. I want to thank you, Herman. Thank you, Latanya, for the financial resources that you so readily share. And especially on today, I want to thank you, Cora Fulmore, for a wonderful presentation. I learned some things today. I know some other folks have learned some things. I was just about to close out a credit card that we don't use. And instead, I'm just going to cut it up and let that balance stay right where it is. So it helps me with my credit score. So I thank you for that. And of course, to you, Pastor Jones, thank you, sir, for initiating this. So on behalf of myself, Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, and our senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller, we thank all of you as well as all of the participants for being here on tonight. God bless you all.
I'll simply add thank you to everyone, certainly our outstanding presenters. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. Part of what we've learned today and through this series will help us to have the kind of financial freedom that will help us to exercise all of our freedoms. Thank you all so much for joining in, and thank you for sharing this information throughout your community and congregation. May the Lord be with you always, now, henceforth, and forevermore is our benediction. God bless you.